Hello, it's so lovely to see you. I'm Olivia and I'm a storyteller. And today I'm telling a story for the Royal Parks and Mission Invertebrate, the bug people. And this is a story all about feeling good in winter, and it's filled with mini projects that you can try. Are you enjoying winter? Or have you had enough? Look out of your window. Go on, I'll wait for you. What did you see? Is it bright? Or did you see grey, low clouds skimming the tops of the bare trees and twigs pointing upwards like bony fingers? On some winter days, there seems to be no colours left, just rain and wind biting bitterly with teeth of frost. The ground is either hard as iron or wet and marshy. Boots sticking, jumper wearing, soup slurping, hot water bottle hugging, wheezing, sneezing, shivering winter, when all we want to do is stay inside, wrapped and cosy in our duvets. Have you ever felt like that? You're not alone. But when we do feel like that, the very best thing to do is to open up our door and go outside. Because otherwise, we might miss a secret wintry world where life is all around, but hidden in the long grasses, underneath the stones, in the bark of a tree. The world of the winter invertebrates. The who? The invertebrates, the creatures with no bones in their backs. They're sometimes called bugs or creepy crawlies, or my favourite, mini beasts. I reckon you know lots of different mini beasts. If I give you 5 seconds, can you shout out as loudly as you can the names of all the mini beasts that you can think of? Are you ready? Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What did you shout out? Did you shout out spiders that spin, worms that wriggle, slugs and snails, butterflies and moths? If you did, brilliant! They are all invertebrates, and they are with us all year round, although sometimes they're too small to see. But for every 100 living creatures, a whopping 96 will be invertebrates. You know, the other day I was doing a spot of forest bathing. No, I wasn't taking a bath in the middle of the woods. Forest bathing is when you go to a place where there are lots of trees, like the forest, the woods, or even the park in the middle of the city. And you wander around, and then you're very still, and you listen and breathe in. Or shall we try that now? Taking a deep breath together, because it can make us feel more peaceful and relaxed. So let's just breathe in and out. I was breathing in all the lovely greens and browns of nature, paying close attention. Studies show that being amongst nature can make our brains feel happier, and that it's positive for our bodies and our minds, which can only be a good thing. So there I was, breathing in, forest bathing, listening to the world around me, soaking it in, when I thought I saw her, the old woman of winter. Long ago, when winter came and the world seemed asleep and under a frozen spell, ancient legends blamed the old woman of winter. They said she had skin blue as mackerel scales, hair that was long and white and foaming like the sea and speckled with frost, with one red eye in the middle of her head spinning like a planet. They said when she walked across fields and farms, parks and gardens, she brought the cold, the howling storms and the sleeting rain, the ice and frost, and that she carried a magical branch. Whatever she touched with that branch, the plants and the creatures, the mini beasts, they would fall asleep, a sleep that would last all through winter, before she would turn herself into a stone and hide the branch underneath. As I was forest bathing in the park, I thought she was there beside me, walking across the grass on feet of ice. Some creatures refused to listen to her, no matter how powerful her magic, while others, they seemed to fall under her spell. The winter moth should have been active. The winter moth, with its pale brown, shiny wings, was specifically designed to cope with even freezing temperatures. It was supposed to fly from November right through all of January, over the trees in the park, finding another moth to make eggs with, that would hatch into little larvae and then emerge as tiny green looper caterpillars. Do you know why they're called looper caterpillars? It's because of how they move. They make a little loop when they walk. They arch their backs. You can try it with me. It's always good to have a little stretch in the middle of a story. Back to the winter moth. The winter moth had felt the old woman of winter pass by, and it thought to itself, "There's nothing out there for me. The world is too cold. I am going to sleep all through winter." But as that winter day went on, the winter moth would have no rest. From underneath a pile of fallen leaves, it heard a bzzz, bzzz. "A bee?" thought the winter moth. "I thought all bees were dead in winter. I thought they died when the old woman of winter passed by and made the flowers wither." Well, she didn't get me. I am a queen bumblebee, not a very humble bee, so you may bow before me. Thank you. I am very much alive. I forage and fill myself with nectar and pollen, and then I find some leaves or some loose soil where I can shelter and protect myself against winter before I'm ready to fly again. The old woman of winter will not get me, and you, winter moth, you should spread your wings and explore the wintry world. Explore the wintry trees. And the queen bumblebee burrowed deeper into the fallen leaves and was silent. The winter moth experimentally unfurled its wings and began to creep along the trunk of the tree, but it wasn't convinced. But this is something that you can try after the story, of course. Go outside and choose your favourite tree, and then just rest your cheek against its trunk and smell and listen at the same time. And maybe you could even give the tree a hug. Can you stretch all the way around it? If you have someone with you, you're growing up, or a brother or sister, you could hold hands and see how many of you it takes to circle the tree. Because being with trees has been proven by science to make us feel better. And as for hugging, well, studies show that it can raise the happiness hormones inside us, make us feel instantly good. Why don't you try it right now? Give yourself a big hug. Oh, it works. So go on this winter, go and hug a tree and tell me what you think. Back to the winter moth. The winter moth was still resting on the tree trunk when it heard a voice from below. "Aren't you bored? Ah, so you can hear me, moth. I thought you would. because you are an invertebrate like me. It was Yellow Slug. Although Yellow Slug was yellow and grey with the most fabulous blue tentacles. You should be exploring, Winter. You're made for this season. I mostly come out at night, when the bony ones, the vertebrates, the humans and the dogs and the birds aren't about, and the old woman of winter didn't spot me. Thank goodness. I have so much to do, said Yellow Slug. I have old leaves to break down, fallen leaves to crunch and munch. It's my job to recycle, to put the nutrients, the goodness back into the earth. Ooh, I love it when it's cold. I love the tingle in my tentacles when the frost particles go inside me. You know, I can be partially frozen, but still alive. You should spread your wings. Don't you know that you belong to winter? You are the winter moth. Go out. There are fewer predators about. You know, the ones that are going to eat you. Mind you, nothing wrong with being eaten. It means you're part of the cycle of life, the food chain. Spread your wings, moth. Not all of us will see the world from up above. I never will. And then off snuffled Yellow Slug, crunching on some crumbly leaves as it went. I don't want to be partially frozen. Not like the slug, thought Moth. Have you ever tried seeing the world from a slug's eye view? This is something else that you can try. All you need to do is go into the park, or if you're really lucky and you have a garden, you could go there, somewhere outside, and take a piece of string or wool or thread quite long, a few meters long, and then put it down on the ground in a quiet place, maybe on a quiet path in the park, under a tree or a hedgerow, and then get down low and follow the route the string makes, and see what you can see from down there. How big do the trees look? What things can you spot that you wouldn't have noticed otherwise? You could write them down or draw them, or if you have someone nearby, tell them. You are looking at the world in a completely different way. Now, back to the winter moth. The slug had gone on its way, but suddenly, from up above, there was a cloud of white. Was the old woman of winter shaking her long hair to make snow? No. The cloud seemed to dance up and down, cold winter light glancing off reflective wings. And then little voices attached to long, spindly legs. We are the winter gnats, and we belong to winter, and so do you, moth. We love to fly when it's cold. We fly close to the bony humans, and when they breathe out heat, we fly closer to them. It does annoy them, but we get warm. And then off we fly over the pond in the park to dance up and down. In spring and summer, no one notices us when we dance. There are so many flies and bees about. But in winter, everyone that passes by sees us. We are winter gnats, and you are the winter moth. So spread your wings and fly. And off they flew, just as the sun was setting, and the old woman of winter was growing tired at last. You could track the old woman of winter, or at least you could forecast the weather. It's true, you could amaze your grown-ups. What you can do is at night time go outside with your grown-ups and look at the sky. You're looking for the clouds. If there are lots of clouds about, it means they're trapping the heat, and the next day will be warm. or if you're out and about during the day, have a look for the birds. If you see them resting or roosting on power lines, it shows that there is a drop in air pressure and that storms are on their way. In the olden times, people used to say things that we're not sure if they're true or not, but they can be fun to study. People would say that if you heard lots of twigs cracking and snapping in winter, it meant there was a dry spell coming, no rain. And if you were lucky enough to have lots and lots of spiders in your house, well, that meant that it was going to be very, very cold. For the winter moth, it had listened to the winter gnats, and it thought to itself, "It's true, I am the winter moth, not the spring or summer moth. It's time for me to fly." And it unfurled its wings that seemed to crackle with the dust of sleep. And then off it flew, over the fallen leaves where the queen bumblebee was resting, over the stone that the yellow slug was crawling over, and up and above the pond where the winter gnats were dancing. Winter moth danced with them and they cheered it on. And then it flew over the big road by the park. A bus was passing by, and just for a moment the winter moth was caught in the gleam of its lights. It shone there for a moment. "I'm a superstar," it said, before flying back into the quiet park. The old woman of winter had turned herself into a stone and was asleep at last. "Hooray!" said Winter Moth. "I'm free from her spell." But then it seemed to sense something else, a smell, a scent so strong it sounded almost like a voice. "Another moth is calling me. I'm not alone," it said. "Coming!" And then off it flew into the moonlight. By the next winter day, on the trunk of the tree, there was a clutch of 150 tiny eggs that would hatch into larvae and then turn into tiny green looper caterpillars. Some of them would be eaten by the hungry and grateful birds, but they would be part of the food chain. Many other caterpillars, well, they would hang from a sliver of silk and they would balloon on the spring breezes over the tops of the trees before emerging as winter moths. The old woman of winter would always welcome them now into her world, and they would no longer be afraid to explore. Spring is coming, and it will be wonderful. But until then, there's a magical world of winter just waiting for you to explore. So why don't you get your scarf, put on your hat, open up your door and go outside. It's time to explore winter, and I'll see you out there very soon. Bye-bye.